Hazelton. Joe. Here. Campeter.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Mealy. Thomas.
Present.
Young. We have a quorum.
Right, should have received electronically. I think there's some laying around the agenda for tonight, so we need to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Get a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody signed up for public comment, Emily?
No.
All right, we'll move to bills introduced, 2025 -032, Ms. Perry.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, providing for the levy of city taxes and establishing the rate of taxation for the city of Jefferson, Missouri for the calendar year 2025.
So this is a bill that we had previously brought before council and council had adopted a property tax rate on. I was recently informed that because the assessed valuations for property were increased by more than 2.9%, that the property tax rate we have has to go down. The other night when we talked on Monday, I did provide you with a new rate. I have since seen another pro forma form. And so the rate that I gave you does agree with all of the documents that are in your packet tonight, and it's slightly higher than what we talked about on Monday night. So we are proposing general fund at 0.4582 and the fireman's retirement at 0.0957. Those are the proposed tax ceilings that showed up on our pro forma form. And so this is a change from what we previously adopted, again, due to the fact that the assessed valuations increased more than 2.9%. Be happy to answer any questions.
Question?
You need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the established rate in this bill.
You need to read.
Is that a, yeah, I need a,
Approve the bill.
Suspension.
suspension of the rules. If some.
Oh.
Move to suspend.
That's all I need.
Any opposition to suspending the rules? Yeah,
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, providing for the levy of city taxes and establishing the rate of taxation for the city of Jefferson, Missouri for the calendar year 2025.
now your motion's in order.
Motion to accept this bill.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second, seeing no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote.
Allers,
Yes.
Allen,
Aye.
Hazelton, Joe. Aye. Campeter.
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
Mealy.
Aye.
Thomas.
Aye.
Young.
Truth says she's saying, vote.
Here.
Probably, if Councilwoman Young is on, you probably need to unmute.
Councilman Hazelton here.
Teresa says she's on and she's saying aye. So anyway, just to let you know.
Yeah, you gotta have a video on to vote. We have 8 ayes.
Perfect.
Two.
Okay, so bill passes, it takes us to item 6, if we can't hear Councilwoman Young, we could be in a Zoom loop. For adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Councilman, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so welcome everybody, MIZ, for those of you who blue fans.
Now, what's the timing here?
Well, you know, we're gonna, roll call, please.
Allers,
Here.
Allen,
Aye, here, whatever.
Hazelton, Job. Here.
Over here.
Here.
Lester,
Here.
Michael.
Here.
Mealy.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Young. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comments? Anybody? Nope. All right, department presentations. Mr. Plant.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and,
Starting on page 97 for Councilman Allers.
all right, very good. Anything else?
No, I'm
Nope,
good.
All right, you all. Just a quick recap. So Planning and Protective Services We have 7 distinct budgets for divisions in here. The vast majority of these don't really reflect a lot of changes, so I'm not necessarily going to go through all 7 in a lot of detail. I'll go through each one, and if there's questions or comments on something, I'll pause for a second if anybody had a question about it. But I'm going to focus on a couple of additional new budget items in a couple divisions. Most of those are surrounding a couple projects we've been working on. So to begin with is our administrative division. That's essentially me and our administrative assistants and other techs. A couple things, and I'll explain this more too when we get to our last budget within our building division. The significant changes here was a decrease in salary and a decrease in our software license and maintenance, and that is really not a decrease. It's just moving from admin division to our building division, as both of those are really building expenses. So just to kind of square up where those expenses are really coming from. So those are the changes there. Other than that, not a lot of significant add for that division. Any questions on that one?
Salary decreases.
Yes, we moved one position. It is our administrative tech. So that one will be paid out of the building division. So that salary just moved. So it decreased, but the corresponding increase in the building division salary. That makes sense. Any other questions? All right, well, we'll move on to our next division, starting on page 101, that is our planning division. Very few changes on this division. A little bit increase in some training for an employee who will be taking a professional certification class, but that's just about $1,000 additional in training. Other than that, really not a lot of additional expenses for that division. Any questions or comments on that one? No, seeing none. Moving on to our MPO, that's our Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO. Kind of administered by our planning division, but it does have its own separate budget, as it does receive federal funds from the Consolidated Planning Grant. The one item I would note, really, where we do see some changes to this is our professional services. Last year, you can see from the fiscal year 25, and I'm on page 106 now. You see the $250,000 in professional services. That was for the tri-level study. This year, that amount, we did not spend all that, but that will carry over. It's not necessarily reflected here, and Sheila can probably explain that if anybody has additional questions, but we do see $100,000, and that is for a new transit study that Campo had voted to include in next year's work program. And all this is really a 80-20 match, so that's 80% Campo money and 20% city match for Campo projects and budget. Any other questions on the Campo budget? No? Okay, moving on to our redevelopment grants here. We kind of refer to that as neighborhood services in a lot of realms. Starting on page 108, 109 is the detailed budget. Really not a lot of change there. You can see a lot of their salaries can be attributed to some of the grants they work on, so that helps us kind of distribute some of those expenses out through admin services that we can pull from some of those grants, which is helpful in decreasing the cost for the operation of that division. One thing I'll note is we are have an increase in the household hazardous waste, really directly as a result of the amount of volume we've been receiving for that program. So very successful, but really a product of that success is additional haul away costs and expenses. So that we asked for additional that based on kind of the volumes we've been getting the last few years. So we're up from $27,000 to $34,000 on that line. Other than that, not a lot of change from year to year within that division. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Next division, environmental health services. So they do a lot of our inspections here in town for our restaurants. Not really too many changes. I will note one though. This is, or actually I'll note a couple. No, just one. So we did request you look at the bottom towards page 113, cemetery maintenance. So this year we had budgeted approximately $43,000, and that's the contracts that we've had approved. So this is for ongoing cemetery maintenance, mowing, and so on. We requested an additional $10,000 this year. We had an issue with tree removal from this past year at Woodland, and we came to realization that there are some trees and locations within that cemetery that are very difficult to access. And it did, I think that cost us significantly more than what we had to pay for that in the budget. So we're gonna kind of probably ask for that a little bit additional maintenance, 10,000 this year, to cover potential tree removals. We do have one we know in Longview that may need to come down in the next year or two. Hopefully not in as bad of a location as the one we had to take out this last year. May not be as expensive, but it's something we'll probably ask for ongoing in the future. So we have that additional maintenance cushion for unexpected maintenance issues that come up in the cemetery. So hopefully we don't need to use it, but if we do have those situations, we'll have that and we can go ahead and take care of those issues. Any other questions for environmental health? Moving on. Next division is property maintenance. One thing I'd note there, just, you know, really the expenses that we see mostly in property maintenance is for pavement and demo. We're really at similar levels as we had last year. There was additional amount budgeted last year for some potential large demos, which didn't materialize. So we're kind of back to what we had asked, I think, the previous year, which is 25,000 for pavement, 50,000 for demos, which covers two, perhaps three demos that the city would cover in any given year. Any questions on that budget?
I do have one item to point out on this one that was brought up today in a question. There is an item in the detail that says not funded, but it has a dollar amount associated with it on the tuition reimbursement. That was an error on my part. I should have removed it and did not. So as we progress into the phase where we're talking about budget amendments, there will be a staff initiated budget amendment if necessary to remove anything we find as we go through this process like that. If that's the only one you find, I am tickled with it. So
And I think Councilman Campbell's
One quick question, that's all. Is the salary going down? You losing somebody or we?
So this division. No, I think what that was that. Oh, Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there had been, we had put some of the salary that needed to be in the part-time salary in the full salary, and we corrected that last year, I think. Other than that, I don't know why
I actually think this might have been someone that we had split between multiple
That-
divisions.
oh, you're right.
And we
Yes.
removed them
we
from
had
this.
more of a neighborhood services employee that FTE had been assigned to this, but that had been removed years ago, but it just never had corrected in here. So salary was still showing in this division. So thank you, Sheila. That's the correct answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Remember, I'm sorry, I don't have my questions and answers. So additional PT for inspectors is really, we already have that inspector, right?
We do. And Sheila and I had talked about this. This is actually a note that got carried over from last year. And we just hadn't gotten the salaries to remove those notes, a little thing that we discussed, but that's not a new request. That's actually what I was mentioning. We just had not got the salaries in the right locations for our part-time versus our full-time. So that's actually where that was coming. Any other questions on that? All right, last division then, our building regulations division. So I point your direction to the bottom of page 121. So really one of the kind of initiatives that we've been working on in our building is our commercial plan review or our plan review process. And this kind of came out of the matrix study too, as a recommendation to convert to like a digital plan review. So working with our service or our software provider, they have that capabilities within the software, but it does require us to essentially purchase that add-on in that software. So we're all together. There's a couple components there. So there's two modules that we're looking to essentially take on as continuing maintenance costs. So we pay, a certain amount for the software, and these are kind of additional costs. There's an initial setup also, and then that ongoing maintenance fee. There's also some ongoing license fees for PDF software that's going to allow staff to review plans digitally and also in the cloud. It's going to allow that collaboration between staff and then also work directly with the software. So all told, it's kind of an initial, I think about a $15,000 additional cost up front. And then an ongoing approximately $5,000 to $6,000 in that maintenance fees going forward. So that additional will be an ongoing fee. And that initial setup is more in that neighborhood of 15,000. That does include also the ability, we're going to put in place online bill pay, which is a consistent request that we get from a lot of our contractors and developers to be able to submit permits online, and then not have to call in to give a credit card number, but to pay online as well to kind of increase that efficiency. So that there's a setup fee for that, and then also an ongoing maintenance fee for that, because that's how all software works now. You continuously pay for anything that you get. And in addition, we're asked for a little bit additional $2,800 for some possible monitor upgrades. So if we're going through this process, we do want to make sure our staff's going to be successful in it. So we had some additional money in there to actually upgrade some monitors so that all of our staff has the equipment, the hardware they need to actually kind of implement that digital plan software. So we've already done that with some of our staff. So we hopefully this is probably more than we need, but this is going to allow us, I think, to also work with Public Works and the fire department, hopefully if they have some needs to make sure that everybody reviewing plans is going to have the hardware they need to do that as well. In addition to that, we are also contemplating an additional fee. So this is a new plan review fee that reflects the fact that we are basically essentially purchasing software to add service, to add, efficiency and customer service aspect of that. So we're going to be looking at basically enacting a new fee once we have all the software in place and it's tested, and then we go live. So we're looking at maybe a 6 to 8, 9 month process to get all that done. And at that point, we probably put together a new fee that would it would go towards kind of larger projects. So it wouldn't, go towards every small project, every small plan review that came in. So it'd be kind of a scale there. So it'd be appropriately scaled for kind of the value of whatever project's coming in. So that would help offset basically some of these new fees that are coming in. Because that is something we want to do is when we have new fees and with the building department, kind of we're looking at it kind of as not necessarily self-sufficient, but we're providing the service. We want the fees and the revenue we're collecting to be in that ballpark. So this kind of helps kind of offset the added service we're providing, but also the additional fees that we're looking for. So they won't be dramatic compared to what the permit fees are now. There'll be probably a small percentage additional of what we're collecting. So any questions on those?
Yeah, I do. And this one may be for you too, Sheila, and citywide. Most of us, when we're using credit cards, are paying a fee in addition to, and sometimes they're hidden to us. We don't know them, but we're paying them, right? I don't know if we are incorporating any of that into the equation. It's a rhetorical question maybe right now. But
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Citywide, we are not currently charging what's called a processing fee. When we first started really heavy with the utility billing, and that was where we started taking things like that into consideration, it was decided by council years ago that we would not pass that fee on to customers because we were hoping to promote the use of online payment or credit card payment, even if it was by telephone with a phone call and a credit card number. So currently in other areas, we do not pass the fees.
Is that for courts too?
With court, because their system is a state of Missouri software, I think that they have fees on it, but it is driven by Missouri courts.
certainly it's something to consider. I threw it out there because personally, we're all getting hit with that 3% in those cases, whether it's stated or unstated. And there's never even, we're having to absorb that because we're starting to get charged it. So I don't know what that number would equate to in the course of a year's time of all the transactions, but be something worth thinking about or revisiting as a council.
And we put that on our radar. So there's going to be some communication with our software provider about how to set that up. And And, we worked with Shelby, she's got involved in this conversation, but we spoke with them, just kind of get the general outline of how it's gonna work. And then once, basically, if this goes through and it is, we're able to go ahead and sign those contracts, then we'll start the hard work of actually getting set up, figuring out how to.
So with the new software, this will be a new method that contractors will be going through, right? So does everyone have to do it that way, or will people still be able to do like the old school way where they bring you like plans, or is?
I think, initially our conversations have been that when we go live with the ability to do this, it'll probably be, this is the additional method that you can submit your plans. We anticipate any type of large engineering firm, architectural firm is going to choose that option every single time, because that means significant cost savings compared to what they have to do to print these out in large format sets and bring them down to us in multiple rolls. But we also want to be cognizant that there are some smaller groups and smaller contractors and developers that may not need to bring in large sets, and they may be more comfortable bringing in just, small set of plans. And we can work with them on that. We've kind of had discussions about how we would accommodate that, and I think we can do that fairly easily. I think we could probably accept those paper copies and then convert them to digital in-house.
So the price is the same for everyone, whether they're doing it online or whether they do it the traditional way, we'll say, the actual paper. So if you brought in everything yourself versus putting it in online.
Yes, it would be. Yeah, we weren't looking or contemplating, cost savings if you were spending digitally, because if we're doing it digitally, there's also that cost of the software we had as well. So probably cost savings, with the digital, so you're not necessarily taking up staff resources to process some of that on the front end. So there's a balance there, but at this time, we haven't really contemplated having that different fee tiers, I think, depending on how you have it.
Okay, I mean, that seems the simplest. I just wanted to make sure that.
Thank you. Just looking into the future, it certainly is probably something to consider how much it's going to cost to store all those electronic fees, whether it be an in-house server or remotely cloud-based. So that could get large quick.
Yes, we will have to look going forward, and we've got that space, so we'll have to get with IT at some point to make sure we can store all those electronically on.
Yeah, may just be kind of a unexpected or a concern.
No, for sure, yeah. There'll probably be a few of those things come up as we go along the way that we'll have to kind of work through.
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's good.
Tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, what kind of stakeholder involvement you're going to be having in either testing or understanding what's coming and feedback for them. What have you thought about in relation to that?
As far as converting to allow digital plan review, to be honest, I don't think we really anticipated a lot of stakeholder feedback on that, other than what we've received already, I think, from a lot of groups that, hey, this is a service that a lot of other communities are already providing. And this would kind of bring us more on par in addition to the online bill pay. I think that the Matrix study also kind of pointed that out. I think they probably spoke, with different groups in town saying this would be a service that they would prefer. And I don't know if there'd be a lot of negative feedback on it, especially if we keep the option open, if you could still do it the old way versus the new way. But I think there's probably so much cost savings for individual firms to do it digitally, that I think they would generally probably support that.
Yeah, we had a streamlining study in, I want to say 2019, that identified this through stakeholder engagements. And we also had the Matrix study a couple of years ago that also had stakeholder engagements where this was requested. So we've got a lot of feedback.
I think it's great. I mean, but so it's intuitive. You're not going to need to provide any kind of help to anybody? That's sort of my
No,
question.
A lot of I'd say the firms that are gonna take advantage of this the most, the larger ones have essentially been doing it already. There's an option to submit kind of a PDF initial one, and that's really all it is. If you go to our online portal, there's some upload links and you're gonna upload your plans there and submit them. So it's fairly simple. And really the benefit there is once you hit that submit button, it's really landing kind of in front of the people that need to look at it, instantaneously versus having to print something out and shuttle it down to the city and getting it, where it needs to go. So there's time, there's material, there's a lot of resources being saved by, I think, allowing and providing for that digital review.
And I think this process has been going for a while. Because I mean, I've submitted PDF like digitally.
Right.
Hopefully, we're getting away from having to submit the 2 extra hard copies is what, right?
Right, and
Yeah.
so that's where I kind of talk about the software. It has the capability there. It's some of the features on the back end. We can receive them, but it doesn't have quite the functionality on the back end for us to actually do that review kind of internally. And so it's a matter of getting the software kind of turned on and built, and then getting staff trained on it. So we can kind of say, okay, we'll have this go live date. We'll flip the switch from here on out. If you do that and you do submit through the portal, the PDFs, that's all you're gonna have to do. You don't have to then bring down hard copies for select staff to review. So,
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think it's already being implemented. Most people are using it.
Yeah.
It sucks to bring in the hard copies, so I think
you're probably not alone.
everybody's gonna enjoy it. And then you get feedback from each individual reviewer. I'm sure it will continue, but beforehand, you didn't know until the end what was going on. But now you get individual, electrical inspection tells you if it's, where it's at,
Yeah.
plumbing inspector. So I think it's gonna work, or it's starting to work out great, I'm sure.
Like a work.
And the paying will be a lot better. I'm still old school, so I come in and give all my stuff and write it out, so it's a big change, but other than that, it's cool.
Good deal.
Councilman Thomas.
So that might have answered my question. So when someone brings in paper blueprints, blah, blah, whatever, applications, does that get scanned in then, or are you dealing with paper through that whole process?
So again, we're kind of managing a couple of different systems. If someone has gone through the portal, we may have a PDF of those plans already. If they don't, our staff recently has started to scan those in so that we can have some reviewers doing some of the digital. So we're doing it kind of here and there, right? And so we do some scanning. But if depending on what they are, if they bring in a set of plans for everybody to review, then those hard copies goes to those reviewers as well. So it's, like I said, we're trying to be accommodating in a lot of different ways. And so this is moving to try to kind of have one kind of best practice way to do it that's easier for everyone.
Thank you.
And that's really all I have on our budgets. If anybody had any other questions on building, that pretty much concludes my presentation.
No questions.
So next budget will be on page 124 for Mr. Brimmer. And Kyle, if you could just cover your general fund, we're going to continue to try and go in order of the book. So eventually we'll hit enterprise funds, but if you could do your general fund one.
Sounds good. Public Works General Fund, 124, central maintenance. The highlights, for central maintenance are the biggest one for me anyways, really is, the reclassification of our manager out there from garage manager to fleet manager. And, that's, that position really, does a lot, not only for Public Works, but for all of our divisions and, whether it's working with fire on their trucks or Public Works or whatever it may be. I mean, covering fire trucks to sweepers to everything under the sun that we have. So I think that is a great change that's happening in this budget. Other than that, there's a little additional funds on training that involves fire truck specifically, so that was a little bit of an add. If no questions on central maintenance, that really covers the highlights of central maintenance. Any questions on central maintenance? All right, moving on to page 128. Public Works Admin, there's really no significant changes under Public Works Admin. I'll pause here in case there are any questions. Any questions? Moving to engineering, piggybacking on Mr. Smith, we will be kind of riding his coattails on that plan review software. So we believe there's money in the budget that Clint included for our plan review team within Public Works. So you won't see any change there. So really, other than that, there is no significant changes in engineering. Any questions on the engineering budget?
It was mentioned, that, Fire Protector Services, in addition to the software, there's some hardware. I noticed you had some hardware for viewing the documents. Is the hardware that they're getting going to be able to be used by the department?
I believe so. Okay. I believe so. Clint and I communicated on it, and I think there's enough in his budget to cover our needs.
Thank you.
Moving on to page 135, street budgets. The changes, the major changes in the street budget really revolve around stormwater materials, street resurfacing. Those are associated with the gross receipt utility tax from wastewater. So those are kind of the buckets within the street department where that approximate $800,000 went to. So that will help us, obviously, before streets get overlaid, do any stormwater work that's required. Whether it be stormwater pipe or the stormwater materials, as in rock and any other materials needed to do that prior work before street. So another change you will see in there is under compost services. There's an additional $40,000 in that budget to cover more pickups and loads at the compost site. Third kind of addition, I would say, to the tree and landscape maintenance, and Sheila covered that in our last discussion. That was moved to streets to move it under a department and have more accountability for that specific item. So we'll continue to work with Parks and Recreations and whoever else to facilitate everything needed in that compost site. Other than those three items, those are the major changes in streets. I will open it up to questions.
So in your list of unfunded needs, and this is just about every year, but you have all these vehicles, they're old and need replacing, costly. Is there a plan to address these needs, keep appearing? And I know there are vehicles, and the need is there.
So if you recall, last year, or in the current year, 25, we did end up taking out essentially a note with Central Bank in regards to some of the equipment that had been requested by Public Works Street Department. So the second year payment of that note is in the street department budget. They did request additional funds, meaning another loan, but as we went through the budget, it was one of the items that very late in the process, we ended up cutting just because of the cost of it. So that's really kind of where we stand at this point. They do have the note that's ongoing for the new equipment that was received in 25. Anything else, Sharon?
Sorry, Councilwoman Allen.
So along that line then, if your vehicles, are they in imminent, danger of breaking down? The ones that you asked replacement for?
I mean, they are definitely, they definitely have some age on them. A lot of them are in our plow team. Most of them are, and obviously a truck that is, dealing with salt, takes, there's a little more wear and tear there, but thankfully, as I mentioned earlier, under central maintenance, I mean, those guys do such an amazing job. As long as those frames hold out, hopefully, as long as the frames hold out, I think that our central maintenance team will be able to keep them running. But yeah, I mean, there are needs, much like, it's a big need for us, but there's, needs all throughout all divisions, so.
Yeah. So those could potentially be capital improvement needs too. As well.
They could be. In the past. We have not done that. We haven't really gotten to that point. But as you can see, we have transitioned some things in the past. So we just haven't made it to the street department as far as taking up the exceptions. The loan that we just took out, at least just this year.
I have a couple questions on yard waste in the group, but I don't want to, Councilman Lester has more related to that.
No.
Okay. So, I know that yard waste is a continuing, a fair amount of work for us, of course, as it should be. And, it's taking, probably more money than we anticipated, if I had to guess. Is there any help that you all need, or are you looking at what that ultimate cost is to us, both in taking people away, for our street work, and also just the overall cost? Are you keeping an eye on it? I guess is the question. And I know there's some discussion about the size of the compost piles out there and that type of stuff. So I just didn't know if that's something that y'all are looking at or not at this time.
No, I mean, we're operating it. The hard costs are about what we thought they would be.
Okay.
We assumed it was gonna be 80 to 100,000 for chipping and hauling.
Okay.
We haven't had a lot of, other than some illegal dumping calls, I don't think we've had a lot of calls for problems out there.
Yeah, not recently. I mean, we do get, obviously some illegal dumping that goes on, but, we're really trying to keep the cost down as much as we can. We did put a bid out there for a year, for a company to do a yearly pickup of that, but, really, it looks like the best way to do it is to bid that out every time you need it, and that's where we're getting a better price for it. So that's our plan for this next year, to try to drive that cost down as much as we can. So, and that's where you see that 90,000, our last time that we bid it out for an individual pickup was right around $30,000. So, we're looking at potentially 3 pickups for next year.
Okay. And then I'm ready to ask about group. Okay. So can you help me understand how this group came about, coming from our wastewater? Of course, I'm thrilled that we are putting money towards streets, but how did this come about, and help me understand why it's okay to pull that from wastewater as an enterprise fund?
The grant.
The payment in lieu of taxes. It's not really a glut because we don't tax ourselves, so it's really a payment in lieu of tax, but it's something that a lot of towns do. The wastewater primarily is operating in our right of way.
Okay.
Those funds, those taxes, those payments in lieu of taxes help support maintaining your right of way. That's why we charge other utility companies that. So as we were looking for ways to try to improve what seems to be everybody's number one priority, which is improving our streets, we looked at a list of different levers that all towns pull.
Yeah.
We pull some, we don't pull others. So this is an opportunity to pull the lever on a utility that we own that operates quite a bit in our right of way. So I think, the mayor, evaluated many options and thought this was the best option to make an immediate impact.
So, other towns are pulling out of an enterprise fund to do this. You've seen that with others without any kind of problems from an auditing perspective or anything like that.
Yeah, we checked with our bond counsel, we checked with, our legal team, and it's pretty common.
So I don't anticipate any kind of audit finding or anything like that.
None.
No.
Okay. And our wastewater, as far as, I know it has a fair amount of debt. Have we done anything? I mean, we feel it can sustain this year after year. Are you thinking this is a 1-year thing or?
No, this would be ongoing.
And we've done projections. Do we have projections to show it's going to be fine pulling this amount down every year? I know it has a large fund balance, but it also has a lot of large obligations and work that it does. So I just wanted to be sure that.
It has a large fund balance, but it also continues to put money towards its fund balance every year in addition to.
Yeah.
And so after confirming with bond counsel that they saw no issues with any debt covenants or required percentages kept in the accounts, we do not believe that to be the case. This year, wastewater is still putting, and we'll get to that eventually, but is still putting money into capital projects of $1.2 million, I think, and also putting about $1.2 million back into their fund balance after this money is transferred.
And of course, we can save this for wastewater, but I have asked about other possibilities for wastewater. So we can talk about that when it gets to wastewater or one-on-one. Thank you.
Any other questions on general fund public works?
Okay, next department is on page 141. It would be the transfers and subsidies. And this is the department that we use to house transfers essentially to other areas. So what you will always see included in this particular department is the airport subsidy and the transit subsidy. But also in here, you will see a transfer to the TIF fund. Any fund that receives sales tax has to put a portion of that back to the TIF fund so that we can pay the developers for the TIF portion. So that's what this is for the general fund. You will see something very similar in the Parks Fund and also in the Capital Improvement Tax Fund. Any questions on that one? Okay, next one is capital purchases and projects for the general fund. What we have included here is on page 142, there is $50,000 for residential development. This is the program that we've currently got in FY25 that has $100,000 in it and is being used as incentives for developers to build residential properties. So this is additional funds that we are intending to put in there for FY26. The other item that is listed in here.
Just while we're there, Terry, is the amount for the previous year correct at 0 because that was adopted or that was a bill mid-year for the residential development fund?
Actually, the funds in the current fiscal year FY25 are actually listed in the PPS area in an account. The reason that we put it into this 10990 account is because these are accounts that are allowed to be reappropriated from year to year. And so that was the intention of council with that residential program. And so we haven't really gotten started on it yet for 25 as far as having to pay those incentives out yet. So we will be transitioning everything over to this 10990 department just to be able to keep track of it on an ongoing roll forward kind of basis.
Gotcha. So kind of the approval of this budget would be the approval of continuance.
Yes, yes. This also includes $200,000 for the vehicle leasing. This is the vehicle leasing that we put into place last year. Same amount. We're just requesting, ongoing continual payments for the vehicle leasing. So those are the only two things we have here in the capital purchases projects for the general fund. Any questions?
Just briefly on the vehicle, talked many last year, talked about it,
Yes.
previous council years talked about it, but I don't know this group so much, but you know, when the analysis is done on vehicle leasing, obviously we're renewing it, so it works, right? Any long-term analysis determined versus old, hanging on old equipment, depreciated equipment versus the cost in the front end?
Well, we have made some modifications to the leasing program. So initially, when we started the leasing program, the best resale value were on the big trucks. And so that's what it was recommended that we have. They had the best resale value as we went through the program. Now, things have changed since then. And so you will see that we have done an evaluation of those. We have switched to some smaller vehicles. We have asked staff that are using those vehicles, what are their needs? And we're really kind of trying to focus on keeping the costs down in that respect. So I think that those changes have made a difference. We've also reduced the number of vehicles that we have. We reviewed that to look at mileage logs and things like that to see how frequently they were being utilized. And so we're managing this, and yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Very good.
Okay, next one will be page 144, Parks and Rec, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Griffrath. And I do believe that he has a
I have a budget
two-page
revision highlight.
slide.
It's in your pack
You
already.
guys do have it on your iPads, so I've included it there for your reference.
Yeah, well, thank you. Before we get started, first and foremost, we were able to present the same budget that we're presenting to you this evening to the Parks Commission on August the 12th, and it was voted on and approved with no major issues. Our department, like a lot of the other departments, it's going to be a very tight budget moving forward. And as we start, when we originally submitted the budget to Sheila, our revenues were budgeted at $11,364,402. And our expenses were budgeted at $11,554.94, $948, excuse me. Therefore, we would need $190,546 out of our parks fund balance. Then as I was going through our position control sheet to identify all the positions we had on the board, so which ones were vacant, which ones weren't. We identified that one position that we wanted to freeze was not froze. So we did do a budget amendment to decrease the budget amount. So that's also will be voted on and approved. I don't know when exactly, but if you want to add to that, Sheila.
I think we'll treat that as we spoke of earlier. It'll be a staff initiated as we get into the process. And so we'll make sure that we put on there that we've initiated that. We're just going to ask council to approve it.
With that being said, we have 12 budgets within our budget. I'll go through each one. I'll kind of treat this like I did the Parks Commission. I won't go as in depth, but you know, with new city council members here, I think it's important to hear some of the recurring fees that we have. As far as the revenues, much like everybody else, we identified that the sales tax projections are estimated to be down next year. So that's going to have a financial impact on our department. Therefore, our department moving forward is really going to have to focus on ways to generate additional funding sources through new programs, really get the foundation active, and then seek grant opportunities moving forward. So like I said, it's not anything that you've not already heard as far as sales tax. We like everybody else hopes that it bounces back. As far as reoccurring fees, these primarily come out of the 210 division. Like I said, it's on the sheet that you have in front of you. Our administrative chargebacks are increased or projected to be increased about $32,691 next year. Our general insurance is down $54,326. Keep in mind, these are all calculations that we get from the finance department. This isn't something that we come up with. Our bond payment, just so you know, every year our debt service payment is with interest, principal and interest is about $468,868. We're on year 5 of 15. So, and then we talked about leased vehicles. Our department spends about $321,191 each year on leased vehicles. And Leanne's been taking a look, just like Sheila explained, of looking to see which ones we really need within our department and moving forward. what cuts we could potentially make with the number of vehicles. As we budgeted, went to balance the budget, as I previously mentioned, we had several positions that were currently vacant. We had to, we took a deep dive. We have 4 positions that we are going to freeze for next year. 2 of those are program managers. 1 is a customer service rep at the front desk at the link, and then 1 is a parks maintenance worker as well. With salaries and benefits, that's an estimated savings of about $260,000. Now, this is not something that's ideal. However, we recognize that we've gotten by so far without it. And then we also have currently on the parks maintenance side, because as we continue to add inventory, all the great things that staff are doing, we still have 3 vacant positions on the park maintenance side, being a parks maintenance worker in construction, 1 in the maintenance, and then currently our forester and arborist position that we're looking to fill. As we balance the budgets, all 12 basically had about a 20% reduction, which we'll go through here in a second, but I just want to make you aware of that. One thing that we really targeted this year was part-time seasonal salaries. We did not increase these for the upcoming year in any of the divisions. We feel like staff can do a better job of controlling expenses, really focusing in on how they schedule part-time staff. So we identified that as an opportunity, and then overall operational supplies as well when we look at that 20%. Just food for thought. We spend about $5.2 million on full-time salaries and benefits as well as part-time salaries, and that makes up about 45% of our budget. But at this time, we'll jump into the budget sheet. If you have any questions, like I said, I'll go through it just like everybody else went through it pretty quick. I tend to talk fast anyway. So in the 210, I think we've already covered that one as far as, some of the major hits are the decrease was the salaries and benefits that we froze, admin chargebacks with the increase there. When we look at the 220 ice arena budget, we had a decrease in building and ground maintenance. That budget is pretty flat compared to last year. Oak Hills Golf Center, we decreased chemicals about 16,800. Concession food, we anticipated a cost decrease there, and then merchandise for resale as well. And then buildings and grounds maintenance. So that one, actually, the expenses are up about 2% there. Memorial Pool, we did a decrease in chemicals and food and buildings and ground maintenance. Once again, a lot of these were based on the previous 5-year average too, when we did some comparison. And that's one reason why we felt comfortable with a lot of these deductions and decreases. The 250 at Ellis Porter, same thing as Memorial. Chemicals decrease, purchase of equipment, and then buildings and ground actually has an increase because we will paint Ellis Porter Pool next summer in preparation for the next year's pool season. 260 parks maintenance, operational supplies were a decrease, and then we had increases in trash collections, parking lot maintenance, and then purchase of equipment. Parking lot maintenance, it's increased by 35,000. However, when Assistant Director Braun and I met, we identified we have a lot of parking lots that are in dire need, just like your city streets that need whether it's overlays or just some attention. So we feel even moving forward that budgeting money in the parking lot maintenance is going to be super important. So that's why you see the increase there of 35,000. 270 is our recreational programs based on 5-year trend. We felt like we could do the decrease in the amounts funded for contract umpires and professional services. We have a purchase of equipment. That's an increase because we've identified we need a couple mowers for the ball field crew. And then ball field repairs was a decrease as well. We're very fortunate that a lot of our ball fields are in great condition. We invested a lot of time and money over the last 4 or 5 years, and they're in really good shape. 272 is our outdoor recreation. When it comes to professional services, we had a decrease there. That's basically our annual, ropes course inspection. We found that, we have an organization that's done it a lot cheaper and has provided a great, assessment out there. And then operational supplies are decreased there too. 274 is our camps, leisure and special populations. With transportation, we're really working to identify ways to reduce that. And based on the last 3 years, we've modified routes and trips and stuff like that. So we've been able to decrease the fee there. And then supplies. Once again, this is an area where we just have to challenge staff to make sure that, before they purchase items, that we don't have it on stock. And then same thing with operational supplies in 274. The link, we're estimating a decrease in concession food. However, that could go up, but it's estimated to go down. We feel like we have a good handle on the number of tournaments we're consistently offering year by year. The link income distribution, an increase there, which is essentially just how we distribute the income coming in with Lincoln University. And then maintenance agreements, that includes a lot of our apps, fitness equipment, et cetera. We've noticed a decrease over the last 4 years, so we feel comfortable with the decrease there at 36,950. And then finally, as we get to the amphitheater, this is just a general operating of what we invest into the amphitheater. Keep in mind that the amphitheater, the management group still, they do their separate one as far as generating report on the revenue and expenses, and then what we end up at the bottom line at the end of the year for that. But we estimate that we'll spend $111,000 at the amphitheater on improvements out there on various things. The biggest cost out there is, to be honest with you, is the internet, I would say. So that's our big one out there. And then 292, finally, 292 arts and events. We decreased training and education. That one's primarily because next year NPRA, the Missouri Parks and Recreation Association conference, is actually in Columbia. So we won't have any lodging for that. It'll just be attendees going to the conference, coming home every day for that. So we're able to do a decrease there. And then we also had one position froze in 292 as well, which we've already talked about. That's total of 4. And then finally, in the 21,990, the only purchase of equipment that we have is a trash truck, an 8-yard trash truck that we really need. Ours is, the bed is in bad shape, and the truck has quite a few miles for its life. That was very quick. Any questions?
The city's got some 20-year-old vehicles that have not nearly reached their limits, so maybe you got a break.
Frames are good. Yeah, yeah.
Councilman Thomas.
Mr. Jefferson, you guys have been doing a phenomenal job with, like the Memorial Park Pavilion and other pavilions and facilities, upgrades, et cetera. In the back of my brain, I remember seeing last year, the year before, a horrendous possible bill for the Memorial Pool and possibly other pools. I'm just wondering where the capital improvement funds for those are coming. Are they there? What? Can I have a pool status, please?
Sure. So, yeah, so when Water's Edge did that study back in I want to say it was 2021, 22. It was identified that the Memorial Pool needed an estimated $1 to $1.5 million of investment to bring it up to speed, to really just buy about a 5 to 10 year window of additional life. With that, as we work on, Leanne and I work on, funding sources and really starting to save for that, that's going to be a key moving forward. And this year, with the Department of Natural Resources grant that's out there, we're looking at potentially applying for the grants this year to be funded in 28. So it is on the horizon. We haven't turned our head to it. We know that we need to do something there because it is a great pool. It's a great resource to the community. But then we also have, other we're hitting that window of big projects as far as you think of the Memorial Pool. We have this great inclusive park that park plan that we've been working on. We'll hopefully have a report on that in November, but those are big ticket items. And as I talked about in the beginning, when it comes to revenue, we as staff have got to do a better job as far as creating new programs to generate some revenue, really getting our foundation more active to work towards funding some of those projects. And then most importantly, grants. I think we've done a better job of applying for grants the past couple of years, but we haven't even tapped the big ones yet. And that's our goal this year. And Leanne's been researching. I think you've sent me 3 or 4 already. So we're looking into those, and it's gonna be crucial for success moving forward to get those grants.
Are there other major expenses on the caliber of Memorial Pool hanging over your?
Not as far as the pool, but like the rest of us, I know Administrator Crane has really tasked us with putting together a long-term capital improvement plan. That is something also that under former Commission President Chris Lytle, we started working on. So that's something we're doing better with of trying to stay ahead of that as well moving forward. But we're trying to identify the 10-year pecking order, because what we're finding in parks is just because we put it out there, things change so fast, and you may think that, okay, we're gonna do the pool this year, and then the wheels fall off the wagon on something else, and we have to divert those funds to something else. So having a plan in place has been super beneficial. So I commend former Commissioner Lytle for leadership on that.
Thank you. I know parks are critical to our future growth, both in housing and business, et cetera. So anyway, thanks for what you do.
Good, Aaron.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're gonna move on to some of the smaller funds before we get back to the enterprise funds. But I'm starting on page 195, and we're gonna run through these pretty quickly because again, they are extremely small. So we have a JC Veterans Plaza Trust Fund. This was established by selling commemorative bricks at the Jefferson City Veterans Plaza in front of the police department. And the funds that are in there, we use for maintenance and upkeep. A couple of years ago, we did a project to get the commemorative bricks off the sidewalk and that kind of thing. So what you have budgeted here is just a little bit of money coming in for interest that's in the account. And I don't have any expenses coming out of this account. We're transferring it all into the fund balance. I take that back. I'm sorry. I've got $900 transferred out of the fund balance, and we're budgeting a total of $1,000 in repairs and maintenance if needed. If not, those funds will just roll back to that fund balance as we progress. Next one is on page 198. It's the police training fund. This is money that comes to us from proceeds from 2% municipal court fee. The funds here come in through court costs. We also do receive interest on this account. And sometimes we get money from the police officers standards and training board. We don't ever know how much that's going to be, so we don't budget it. If it comes in, it goes into this fund specifically, and it's utilized for training. And we do have in here money scheduled to come out of it for $25,000, and that would be used for levy training as the police department needs to send new officers for training. They would use those funds. Any unused funds, again, continue to roll back to the police training fund. Next one is the lodging tax fund on page 201. This fund takes into account the fact that there is interest earned on that lodging tax fund. Also, there is the revenue that we bring in for the lodging tax itself. And then the city does turn around and we keep a 2% administrative fee for the lodging tax administration of bringing it in and also then paying it to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so basically what we've got here is bringing the money in and then we transfer a portion to the general fund, which is the 2% administration fee. And then we make 2 transfers to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, one for the CVB and one for the Conference Center Fund related to the CVB.
On that particular, item, we had 30,000 budgeted for the election or for the election. So, yeah.
So-
Is that shown here? Is that
It is.
shown?
It is actually shown in the transfer to general fund amount. And so I calculated what we would be earning on the 2%, and then this has $30,000 added to it. So we'll basically take that out of the monies that we transfer to the CVB. On page 203, Councilman Mealy, you can see there that the adopted in 25 was $33,000, and the mayor's budget in 26 has 63. So we've added $30,000 to it. Next one is the City Hall Trust Fund. This is a fund that, it's my understanding, many moons ago, and still occasionally, they sell prints of a mural in City Hall. I don't know that I've ever seen the print, but they sell them. And when the money comes in, it goes into this fund. We do earn some money and interest on this. And these are, the money in this fund is usually used on projects that would be considered art installations or something like that. The last project that we did is the city seal that's out in front of the building in the sidewalk. So that was the last project that these funds were spent on. Right now, we're just estimating a little bit of interest on the balance and no expenditures or anything like that out of the account. It all just rolls into the fund balance at the end of every year until someone brings a project.
I don't even know if we have prints anymore. I've never seen them.
I think they're
Downstairs.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, they do have, and occasionally we'll see one. I mean, like money from one. Again, I've
The
never
one on
seen
the
a
back
print.
wall as you walk into City Hall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The big ones.
Oh, it's not.
If you go down to the counter, I think you go down there and somebody there knows about them.
It's a mystery.
Look,
You got it. You got it?
I'm gonna.
That's why we don't sell them.
Don't line up.
I'm gonna ask tomorrow and see what happens.
you're gonna go mess with them, aren't you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Allen.
So I know that there's been some discussion about, making our coming into City Hall a little nicer looking. So is it possible you could do some art and get people to either contribute to get the art on or something like that, that we could use that trust fund in some way to.
And somebody needs to know what it is, sure.
How much do that? But I mean, it's just something to think about, because I know Molly has talked about making our city hall a little more pleasing to walk into and, maybe some.
And we did talk about a little bit of funds in the building and grounds maintenance, non-departmental, I think, so that we could kind of refresh it, maybe is a good way to put it, not update it, but, refresh it a little.
Oh, we had 5,000.
There might be people willing to contribute to a trust fund to get a really cool piece of art in the city hall. So just something to consider.
Next one, page 207, USS Jefferson City Submarine Trust. This is a trust that was established through private donations during the 1991 commissioning of the USS Jefferson City. And so occasionally we do have some contributions that still come into this fund. And the money in this fund has historically been used when members of the crew come to visit. And so in this particular case, the fund is really starting to deplete because it has not had any active fundraising done on it. And so I've not included interest on this one, and I've not included anything as far as expenses go. I do know that we have heard that the crew is coming to visit in 25. And so my expectation would be that they're going to have to come before council and request a supplemental appropriation out of this fund to have some available funds for when the crew does come this year. So we'll deal with that when it comes time, just so we have the opportunity to review the agenda and the activities and things like that, so that we can make sure that everything is being handled appropriately for this fund.
I would note just that they maybe with budget, but they are planning to bring in a crew the 22nd, 26th of September, right around the corner. And I believe they do plan on coming to the council to request an amendment for those needs. And they've got a tentative agenda outlined and all the different things that they have scheduled here. So kind of a cool deal.
Page 210, Woodland Cemetery Trust. This again is another trust where it was established by Exchange Bank. They transferred it into the cemetery trust for the city. We do look at it and utilize these funds when possible. I don't have any interest built into this because the fund is kind of depleting fairly rapidly. But we have put in here $5,000 to come out of the fund balance to assist with any special maintenance items that they may have at this particular cemetery. Do you know that Mr. Smith spoke about requesting additional cemetery maintenance funds? But since Woodland has their own trust, we will try and use those funds for anything for Woodland. And then the funds that were extra that they requested will be used for the other cemeteries.
Yeah, trust fund usually, in the past, they use it to do like, stone restoration. To maintain.
Okay, so now we're on page 213, capital improvement tax funds. We have some information here on capital improvement tax, but I also would like to kind of skip a lot of the items that are listed here. They are sales, some of the sales tax F44, 45. They will not be bringing in additional funds, but they are here for informational purposes as far as the historic actuals go. And so what we're actually looking at right now would be sales tax H46 expenses on page 221. So what we did with this is we have a projected revenue. And I think we talked about this previously, where usually this capital improvement tax would be half of the amount that we budget for the general sales tax. But we have to take into account some of those utility taxes that are only taxed on the general fund, not on capital improvements. And so what I have done here is taken into account the amount of money that you should be seeing come in based on that adjusted amount. I'm having trouble finding it. Okay, so we've got this coming in at $7,002,500. And that's based on the figures that we had budgeted previously for general fund as well. So what we did is we took that anticipated amount of revenue coming in, and we have used the allocations that we have historically used for the various departments or categories, however you want to look at it. So when you get there to page 221, you will start to see that those are broken down in categories. Parks has a portion of that. Public safety has a portion of that, and it's split between fire and police. We used all of the same allocation percentages that we've used in the past, and that's where the funds have been put. And so I think when we originally started this process at the beginning of this 5-year iteration, we had a set dollar amount every year that we were using for revenue, and that set dollar amount was much lower than we have been collecting. So we've increased the revenue and in turn increased the allocations using the same percentages, but increase the dollar amounts that each area will be getting. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. Department directors are here to talk about the individual allocations that they have. I will point out that once you get down into the budget analysis for the expenses on page 222, This is where you're gonna start to see the listing that department directors have provided on all of the needs that they have. And so there will be a lot of items here that say not funded, new requests, have $0. Those are items that, as department directors trying to build this forecast out, we have shown our needs, and we will start to use those particular items as we start to talk about potentially extending the sunset on the sales tax. So there are page after page after page of not funded items here because they do have a baseline, and most of the items that they've identified are above and beyond what their normal baseline would be. Any questions on that?
Councilman Islanders.
I think, and this could be for Sheila or Kyle, the pipelining that we did in 2024. Just looking across the line item here from 183,000, we have a negative 90,000. For my just references, and that's on page 221, Sheila, too.
Yeah.
It's a.
So that's in the year-to-date column, and to be honest, I'd have to go back and take a look at it. It could be something that you can see that there were 24 expenses. It could be that we overstated those expenses in 24 and we've had to modify and adjust them in 25. So if they were overstated in 24, we would understate them in 25 for audit purposes, which is essentially what this is. But I could go back and look and review that.
That makes sense to me. I had a project in the first one that had been lingering for years that I think finally got done, and was very appreciative of that. And I've just wondered if that was, could you explain what, and it made sense to me. So, thank you.
On a side note, all the pipe been sitting down expressway, you might know what all that's gonna be used for. But is that city?
It's MoDOT.
I would say more than likely MoDOT, it's by the expressway.
It's sitting like behind the old.
It's the blue pipe you're talking about.
Well, there's blue and another color, I think, but it's sitting right off the
Going
expressway across from Coke.
They're going underneath where,
Oh.
or underneath the bridge to West Creek.
I would presume that that's Missouri American Water doing, water line work on Jefferson perhaps, but that's just an educated guess.
Water pipe,
Is that what the blue pipe represents? Water pipe?
probably.
You don't miss anything.
I do want to point out one more thing here on this sales tax, 46, at the very bottom of page 221. You will see that, under City Hall, building maintenance and repairs, there's $1,055,000. This is the number we've spoken about the one-time drawdown for the HVAC project. And if you go to the next page on 222, there's a line that's a negative $1,055,000, which is the long-term project funding. Essentially, those funds have been set aside in the long-term project funding previously. And since sales tax reappropriates each year, this is just my indication that we'll be moving those funds from the long-term project funding into that City Hall HVAC project for the one-time buy down of that.
It's very, on the, CITH, what's on 222, page 222, the debt services total, that's 7% of the total expense. Can you just maybe briefly touch on what the debt service total is in relation to the tax?
Well, the debt service is actually talking about the debt that we have on the fire truck, lease purchase is what we call it, right? So essentially, while it might be 7%, that is coming out of the fire department's allocation. So whatever percentage the fire department gets, this is set aside out of that amount to cover the debt service on those fire truck leases. Yes. principal and interest on those leases.
So it's not an interest, that's not the interest rate.
Sure.
That's the entire payment.
Right, yeah, I didn't think it was. the
So yeah,
interest
it's
rate.
not a
I
7%
was
interest rate.
trying to, and maybe the comparison was bad, but it seemed like, yeah, I saw the number, had that question. Thanks.
That's the only lease payment we have in there, isn't it?
That's the only
Yeah.
debt out of
So we
capital,
pay as we go on everything else.
That's the only debt.
out of the sales tax period.
We've had debt services out of previous FG.
Just the same thing, the fire truck leases. And for as long as I've been here, that's been the case. We have had, obviously because of the cost of fire vehicles.
It would have started in 2008.
Was it fair to say your entire allocation of that sales tax is applied to vehicles?
No, the lion's share of it is, there really are only three categories for us. There's the fleet, we call it, a portion. And then there is a small amount for equipment, thinking it's about 46,000 with the adjusted amount. And then, we have a little bit in facilities. I'm thinking that's around 200-ish facilities, and that's covering a lot of different things. But that's the only breakout we have, those three categories.
Okay, next one is public safety tax on page 226. Again, the sales tax here is computed in the same manner as the capital improvement taxes, but it's a quarter of what's in the general fund, or half of what was in the sales tax. So these figures here, $3.5 million coming in for sales tax. And then we have 4.2 million going out to the general fund to cover the costs that were previously agreed to through contract negotiations, maybe is the best way I can put it.
But a word that you used there caught my attention. You said computed as previously. What did you mean by that, computed as previous?
So during contract negotiations, there were some items that were added as part of that particular year. So for example, one of them that I can think of, I think that when the body cameras came about, we had a sergeant that was added to administer and maintain all of those records. That was agreed to at the time to come out of the public safety tax. So anything that had previously been agreed to come out of that tax is all that's included in that tax as far as the transfer that we're doing to the general fund. Okay, we have 4 enterprise funds, which Kyle could cover. I don't know how long you want to stay this evening, or we could skip those enterprise funds, do those next Thursday, and I could finish up on the few small little funds that we have at the tail end of the budget. I don't know, can you finish? I don't know how long it's going to take him for his enterprise.
Well, and parking's, gonna be modified soon. Anyway, so.
I mean, it won't take me very long to go through them. I just don't know, what kind of questions and how lengthy it might be with those questions. So that's.
Would it be okay to skip forward to the remainder of the small little funds that I have to cover and let Mr. Brimmer finish on Thursday of next week for the enterprise funds?
That sounds fair.
Okay, okay, so I'm going to page 269, Shelby says. Okay,
She says it's
self,
gotta be right.
she's always right, she tells me. Self-insured workers' comp. Basically, these are funds that, we expense in the various departments based on staffing. And we move those funds to the self-insured workers' comp fund. And then we pay the workers' comp claims out of the self-insured workers' comp fund. So what is budgeted within the individual departments and funds for workers' comp expenses is $400,000, and that's what will be transferred into this particular fund as we get started with the fiscal year. We do have a little bit of interest that we're earning on that account, and then the remainder of the expenses, the remainder of any funds that we have end up getting paid out for the self-funded claims. And you can kind of see we have those all spread out, but essentially whatever revenue and interest we bring in is what we have budgeted within the self-funded workers' comp fund. And we monitor that on a regular basis like we do the self-insured health insurance. I know that's not a very good explanation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them. Self-funded health insurance, if you look at this particular fund, you may question why there is no budget within this fund. And it's kind of the same concept. We are budgeting health insurance expenses within the individual departments and funds. Each department that has personnel will have a health insurance expense. For that health insurance expense, a portion of it will be utilized to pay the actual premium invoices that we get from the insurance company. Every month, the remainder of those funds are transferred over to the self-funded health insurance. And we then give a budget in that same amount that we transfer over to pay claims. We don't budget at the beginning because quite frankly, I don't know what the cost of the premiums is going to be. And so each month there is a budget amendment that's done that increases the revenue into this account, the budget for revenue into this account, and also at the same time puts the budget for the claims expenses into the account as well. That's why you see no adopted budget in 25 or 26, but you do see expenditures year to date in 25. Last one is the TIF fund, tax increment financing. This is where we take in funds that are related to the TIFs that we have around town. Currently, we have the South Side, we have Capitol Mall, and we have St. Mary's TIF. Those are the ones that are active and are bringing in funds at this point. We potentially could have some others, I think, that start at some point in 26, but I don't know that at this point. So what we do here is we project the revenue that we're going to be bringing in, and then in turn, we account for those as transfers from the general fund, from parks, and from capital improvement, because those are the funds that benefit. Therefore, those are the funds that'll end up paying the TIF expenses when we have to pay them out to the developers. So no actual revenue in here from any other means besides the money that we as a city transfer in from those three funds. And then we essentially budget expenditures in the same amount. Right now, we are expecting that of those TIFs that we have, 2 of those will pay out to developers. We have one TIF at the Capitol Mall that has not met the threshold levels to pay out. There is no increment there on the sales tax that we receive. So we're bringing in sales tax that is under what we were bringing in when that TIF was established. Therefore, there is no increment to pay out. So we're still anticipating the same thing. We're anticipating the others will pay out to developers, but there will not be any developer payment on these at this point. At least that's the trend that we are seeing and that we have seen over the past couple of years. Any questions? Okay, so what that leaves us then for next Thursday are the 4 enterprise funds: airport parking, transit, and wastewater. If we cover those at the beginning of the meeting, then on the remainder of the agenda, we are scheduled for Q&A of staff if there is any. I think the one thing that we did want to point out is that I know we have on the budget calendar a deadline for budget amendment forms to be turned into finance. I'm happy to accept those at any point. That allows me an opportunity to kind of get them together, get them compiled, make sure that all of the account numbers and everything are correct. So if, as we go through this process, you have anything you'd like to provide, I'm happy to take it at any point up to that deadline.
Just one final comment in summary. Having watched this process over the last few years, last year being the first year that it was narrow. It's even more narrow this year. In the years past, especially with the infusion from the federal government related to ARPA funds, there's a lot of discussion on where it needs to go and how to be used. Pretty hard to do that, folks, in this current scenario that, as predicted, probably not going to be easier as time goes on. But that doesn't mean that you don't have ideas or have something you want to try to figure out how to do it, that you shouldn't go through the process and figure out where the money's going to come from. It's awful hard when you have something that you want to do, and in order to do it, there's not new money to fund it. You've got to pull resources from somewhere, and it's got to hurt somewhere else. Never been a big fan of that personally, unless it really makes sense. We used it this year in the sewer piece, we're trying to do what we all and all our citizens want us to do in an effort to try to put as many resources in those streets as we can while not damaging another department. And that's why the staff made their recommendation the way that they did. And the justification behind it. But outside of that one, I think the word we used last year was happy hunting. So thanks for the staff presentations tonight. Next Thursday.
We will be back in the council chambers.
So cool.
That installation going okay?
The audio is finished. I think Emily had a demo and it's my understanding it's much better.
Can I go?
Now, we may have some camera issues to start with, so bear with us, but audio will be solved.
I don't look good on radio anyway.
Nobody's telling us to,
I will share some with the group real quick. I attended a board meeting for different function today, and they redid their board. And they have a speaker, much like what we do, or a cone up in the ceiling that's got some obscene number of microphone capabilities, like 94. In a room like this, through AI, it can tell the difference between a paper being wrinkled and a voice. And even if we're sitting here talking quietly amongst ourselves, it's picking it up and sending it out. That way we're being recorded. I have no idea what we got.
Make sure you turn your microphone on.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So I am going to request from the mayor at Tuesday's council meeting, before we get started with our pre-meeting, maybe just a couple of minutes to cover how the equipment in the room works, because everybody will have microphones. So we want to cover that and talk about when you're on, when you're not on, that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, that's when I was.
Set the word out, motion to adjourn.
Motion is second, all those in favor? Have a good
We're gonna do the next.